Wow, that was an abrupt ending. I didn't realize that. Anyway, welcome everybody to the Saturday night live stream. I am not feeling well. The last couple of days I have had severe bouts of vertigo where the room literally does this and you cannot stand up, you have to lay down. And I've been having the treatments done. If you're not familiar with those, is where they try to realign those little tiny crystals that live inside your ear that maintain that balance in your inner ear. And right now I feel okay. I cannot move around too much because that will trigger the room to spin. You're supposed to be cured once you get through those little treatments. But anyway, it hasn't really worked out too well. So I've been kind of laying down and taking it easy today. Tomorrow we're going to be traveling south of here to Virginia, to Colonial Beach, Virginia, visit my wife's aunt. Her son passed away. And I think they're having a yard sale, and I think they need help with some things. I'm not going to be much help, but in fact, I told my wife, yeah, honey, you'll be driving down there. It's a couple of hours drive, so not fun. Anyway, I did manage to gather up a few topics to discuss tonight. The weather's been great here. We've had some really nice temperatures. I got a couple of flights in the other day, and I think you may have seen a video that I just recently uploaded this afternoon. And that was with the Anafi, which I will show you later, a couple of accessories and the nice little case that I managed to nab. And you're not going to believe what I paid for this once you see the inside. Anyway, had a really lengthy, out of the blue conversation with Mike Lee from Precision Colors. He just called me. It had been months since we spoke. This happened already twice this month, so that's good. And the first conversation was just very general. He's very tired, kind of tired of the business, and he's about my age, so he's thinking that he could very easily just, retire. He doesn't really need to do this any longer, but he's going to continue. But he's going to continue to do that, simply paring down on what he makes available. In other words, I told him very bluntly that, listen, if you haven't sold anything for a particular printer family or model for, say, a year, then why are you still carrying inventory for that model? Concentrate on what's popular now and what's been selling and what's been talked about by all of you. P800 from Epson, other Epson printers that are popular. Popular is the key. Nothing in the 3-color RGB, no, CMY only. And they even composite black. There's 4-color printers that use CMY and then a black ink. And then you have, some of them even have 5 colors. And those have 2 blacks, one photo black, which is dye, one pigment black, which is used simply for plain paper text type printing. And then up to the 6, once you get up to the 6 color, that gets into the realm of photography. Those are usually dye based ink. We're talking about Epson so far here. And then after that, you get into the more professional or semi-professional printers using, 8 and up colors. 8 being the new P400, which, replaced the R2000, and which replaced the R1900, which replaced the R1800. It goes back quite a while. And those printers were basically the same thing. Nothing really was changed drastically. The only big difference was the 1800 had a blue ink, believe it or not. But anyway, the 1900, 2000, and 400 is the same printer, just kind of revamped a little bit and using the same ink set. So in the Canon side, of course, it's a little bit more prolific, if you will. Pro 100, Pro 10, Pro 1, and the Pro 2000, Pro 1000, and way up, and they have lots of revolutionary new products that Epson didn't quite come through to give us this past several years. All they did was readdress existing printers. And yeah, so that's why if you are a frequent viewer of my videos, it seems like I concentrate mostly on Canon printers. But anyway, that's the reason why, because there's really nothing drastically different available with the Epson side of things. So he was telling me that he received a boatload actually, of chips. I gotta lean back because I'm already feeling dizzy. A boatload of chips for a specific model of Epson, which apparently is an all-in-one. And what's happening now is that this is what you're going to be seeing in the future, folks. It's going to be simply, if at all, it's going to be just single-use chips. That is it. No more, auto reset chips for Epson printers. So you will be getting, say, a refillable cartridge, but you will have to then replace chips every time you run empty. And think about this, some of those cartridges for some of those printers will hold only 12 to 13 milliliters of ink. You'll be constantly replacing chips. Now, I assume that these chips are not going to be very expensive. So if you still insist on refilling, then this is going to be your only option at this point for a lot of these newer all-in-one home-based type printers. So yeah, the future doesn't look too good as far as that's concerned. So I always say, take care of the printers that you do have now that are indeed able to be used with third-party inks. Sounds pessimistic, but it's actually more realistic than anything. So the problem that he experienced with this new batch was this, and it kind of shocked him. So here he was using the current batch of chips, because apparently he's using this printer at home simply to print all of his non-photo type documents, just for fun, because he's a printer guy, so might as well. And he was having absolutely no problems with it, and then all of a sudden he decided to test these new chips that we received for the same printer, same refillable cartridges, and he noticed that the chips had a V2 version 2 etched on it. He popped a chip on one of the empty cartridges, filled it up, put it back in the printer, and none of the other colors were accepted, as well as the one he just replaced the chip on. So not only did it reject the one with the new chip, but automatically rejected the other 3 colors. This is just a little 4-color printer, that's all. That's all it was. And that created a whole set of problems, questions, theories, what's going on here. And who knows? So why did they create a version 2 chip for this model? What could have been the reason? Well, it could have been that maybe the firmware somewhere along the line was updated and the older chips no longer work. Well, guess what? These new chips are not backwards compatible either, apparently, because he doesn't have, in fact, at this point, he wasn't really sure what firmware was actually installed. You cannot always go by what's printed on the nozzle check. You get some data printed along with your results, but often the firmware number is not what's indicated there. So he's at a loss. What to do, right? So I said, well, the only way to know is to upgrade that software to whatever Epson says on the website is the most current one, and determine whether that now blocks the previously working chips. He hasn't gone back to like reinstall the older version. Let's call it version 1. So he hasn't gone back to do that. So he doesn't know whether that's going to bring the printer back to life again. He's working with those new chips, and he only installed one at this point. So rather than doing the normal behavior of rejecting just one chip, the one you just installed, in other words, that chip or that channel should be like isolated from other channels. So if you do something to that chip, only that chip malfunctions and not the rest of them. In this case, everything is being rejected. So that just kind of makes you think, oh boy, what's happening here? What exactly is the problem? And we left it at that. We really don't know. So right now I'm going like, wow, is this what's happening? Is this what's going to happen? Yeah. Another, referring to chips not working. So this poor kid from Mexico wrote me an email. He says he's got a P800, and apparently the kid is really, really a good photographer. I don't know if he's a kid or not. He sounds like he's in his 20s. And, when you're almost 70, you call everybody a kid. So he began to use refillable cartridges just like me and thousands of others did. And of course, now he realizes that, hey, my cartridge is not resetting at all. And he went and bought some replaceable chips, believe it or not, that are sold from China. And those, of course, were rejected. And I had done the same thing. I did that a long time ago. When I realized that the chips were not working, in other words, they were not resetting, I saw an offer or an ad from a seller from China on Alibaba for permanent chips. They're supposed to be full all the time. So they're supposed to read completely full all the time. And that reminds me of, early Pro 3800, where those refillable systems basically did that. All they did was report full ink, and your maintenance cartridge was always reported as being fully empty. So all you had to do was kind of monitor things visually. And that worked fine, perfectly. So I thought, okay, that'll be a good option. So I went ahead and ordered those chips, popped them into my cartridges, and all of a sudden I got nothing but red X's all the way across. Went back to my regular ones. Now at that point, I hadn't yet reached empty on any of the cartridges, so I was just checking to see, because why not, right? They were only like $50 for the complete set, and you just swap the ones from the refillable cartridges with those. They are identical in the little holder that can pop on and off of the cartridge itself. Pop them in, and I thought if I could get this switched over to always full, then I am in. I'm done. This is no problem. From now on, I'll be able to just continue using this, because unlike the Pro 1000 and up, where it uses all of these internal sensors to actually almost measure the actual ink volumes passing through your printer, I don't think the Epson did that. So I thought, okay, this will be a good way to get away with this. No, they were rejected, and presumably, possibly because they probably had the same ID numbers that my original chips on those refillables had. In other words, a new set of numbers hadn't been borrowed, let's just say, by these companies. So everything didn't work. So again, I still have them in a bag. They're useless. But this poor kid from Mexico, he figured, hey, I'm in a foreign country. I'm not in the U.S. It's not going to be a problem. Well, yes, because it's not just the U.S., but North America. And the last time I checked the map, I think that includes Mexico. So I don't think they include Mexico as part of Central America. So that was the one, I guess, thing that categorized that printer he bought as a North American zone printer, and so he cannot use third-party products. Well, you know what the other option is? Two options, actually. One of them is unproven, and then one of them actually works. $400 decoder board. And then the other one is to revert the firmware back to a hacked firmware that is being sold for $60, not $600. You're kidding me. Maybe around $70 is what it is. And you need the WIC tool to install it. And that supposedly replaces the current firmware, which is the one that's locked, with one that I think what it does, it just doesn't display any ink monitoring whatsoever. It just kind of, you show empty, you show nothing, and then you just very basically manually keep track of your levels. Pain in the butt. All right. Just so you guys know, I'm really, really feeling dizzy. I may cut this short tonight. Let me say howdy to everybody. Eli is here. He was here earlier. And by the way, you guys, once we leave tonight, make sure you go to YouTube and just type in Eli, okay? E-L-I. And look at his video that he shot. It's a compilation of shots from his trip to Switzerland. He sent me a link a while ago, or actually I just happened to catch it because I subscribed to his channel. And I was flabbergasted, okay? I suggested a couple of little things, but, nothing that would really matter much. I told him to submit it to Ken Heron's drone show every Thursday evening. And he had previously won Video of the Week on a prior occasion. I told him this is a sure winner. And sure enough, he did win Video of the Week. Got some very expensive filters for his Mavic and the drone, that is. And so, yeah, again, extremely talented young man. Make sure you guys watch that video. The footage is gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous. Janet Diaz is here. I haven't seen you, girl, for God knows how long. How's the sublimation business going? I hope you are doing well. I just saw a recent video from a woman who runs a store online, sublimation products. And it's really interesting because she named it, "Are the sublimation companies lying to us?" That was the title. And simply put, what she discovered was that, just like I showed already a long time ago, that yes, you do have to buy sublimation transfer paper, okay? At least that's what they tell you. But she did a test. I don't know why she got that idea to do that. She did a test using her normal sublimation transfer paper and then hammer mill, I think it's laser paper, laser jet paper, and then just regular copy paper. And of course, the most expensive, of course, is the transfer paper, followed by the hammer mill, and then just your normal copy paper you might buy at Costco or Target or any of those stores. And she went ahead and printed 3 designs. Once, the same design 3 times on those 3 papers, then cut them out into little squares and then laid them over. I guess, I don't know what she printed them on at first, or transferred them onto something, one of the products from Condi. And then a t-shirt, a polyester t-shirt. And guess what? All 3 transferred equally. Now, that's not what I experienced when I tried that. I got a very good result. This is on a polyester coated mug, and this is copy paper. Okay, so yeah, this looks really great. Just doesn't look as great as the one I did on A-sub paper, A-sub paper. That gave me a superior transfer compared to that one, but that still transferred beautifully. It's just that if you were to compare the two, you would choose the one done on the A-sub paper. Charles Verbruggen is here. Anthony Petit is here. Cynthia Shepard, I don't believe we've had you here before. Cynthia, welcome to the show. I hope I can hang out at least a couple of hours. We'll see. We'll just test the waters and see how I do. As we get into more subjects, maybe I'll feel a little better. 1066 Internet is here. Jeff Nolan. He says, been there, it is terrible. Yes, I know. It's been now 3 days like this, and I haven't been able to do anything. I got so much to do. Jeff Nolan, Vertigo laid me up for 10 days. Please don't say that. Gosh, I got a trip coming up in September, and it's, you know, it's a family trip with others that are going to be there as well, and I don't want to have to deal with this. Henry Stoffel is here. Hello, everybody from Wells, Maine. Labor Day weekend, yes. Yeah, we thought we were going to be here for Labor Day weekend, but we got to go visit my aunt. And we'll be back. We'll be driving back up. At least my wife will be driving back up on Monday afternoon. George Gabb is here from Texas, only 98 over there. Cliff Fitt from Denmark. Harold Goldberg is here, of course, from sunny Richmond, Virginia. George Gabb. Mixing chipsets can cause problems. Would be interesting if had all version 2 chips. Yeah, he's got to do that. That's what he's got to test next. But the thing is, it might not work because those version 2 chips were probably as a result of having to recode the chips because of a possible firmware increase or firmware update for that particular model. And when he told me the model, I had no clue what he was talking about. Epson. Michael McLean from Alaska. Wow, that's the first. That's the first for this show. Bernhard Moore. Greetings from Southington, Connecticut. We got Eli again. And yeah, congratulations, my friend. You did really, 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 really great with that video. The one I uploaded just this afternoon, you know, compared to that, I mean, the scenery is not as fabulous, of course. It's just here. But it kind of showed off what that little Anafi drone can do, which, by the way, I'm falling in love with it more and more as the days go by. And I got a couple of little accessories that I'm going to share with you guys later, if I can last. All right, so also had a question, and this was from several people. They wanted to know why, with some of these all-in-one printers, and whether it's Canon or Epson, really doesn't matter. There's a specific family of printers that tends to have 5 cartridges, like I mentioned earlier. One of them will be a pigment-based black, and then the other 4 will be a photo transparent dye black, a photo black, a magenta, yellow, and cyan. So that's really basically saved for your photos if you're going to print some photos with these types of printers, but they're really not designed for that. But you know, they give you the opportunity. So your color documents on regular copy paper would be using black pigment ink, and then yellow, cyan, magenta, and then when you put photo paper and you change your paper type to something glossy or luster, it'll not use the pigment black, and will then trigger the photo black, the dye based inks. And Simply the question was, why do I not get the same level of black? Okay, I get strong blacks when I print on regular copy paper. And again, you know what the answer is going to be. It's because the printer driver automatically switches over to the, in other words, he was printing on a non-glossy paper, okay? And because he chose something other than what do they call it? Not standard paper, basic paper, whatever. Let me look it up. There's a term for that. Control. Let's see. Look at the printers. Devices and printers. I got to get the term right. So plain paper. So it used to be copy paper. Now they're using the term plain paper. So he was using a non-plain paper choice. And of course, that was triggering the so-called photo black ink. It would be like printing on a Pro 100 on matte paper. Again, dye inks, although the Pro 100 does a really good job, but other printers may not. Other printers may not. So just keep in mind that because of those two blacks, you're going to get a different in density. So you're not going to get as deep a black. In fact, he was complaining that instead he was getting kind of a dark purplish color. Well, I said, well, guess what, buddy? Black dye ink is dark purple or optical blue. It's a very deep purple shade. And I'm going to do a video once I feel better. And I'm going to take some samples of some of the inks that I have. And I'll have some cups of water ready. Transparent cups, plastic cups of water. And I'll go ahead and drop some dye ink, some dye black ink. And I'll drop some dye gray ink. And you will see the big difference. The black ink is like a deep purple. And the gray inks are more toward neutral, okay? And it's amazing that happens and how they have designed these inks. Whereas the pigment ink, the pigment photo black will be pretty neutral in shade. Once it disperses through the water, you will see that there's no tonality to it. At least most of them are. Matte black is just intensely dense. And so you should be able to see a nice, clean, almost leaning toward a yellowish shade. And so that's how these black inks are. And that's why they need the other colors to sort of neutralize them. So that you get, when you print monochrome, so that you get a nice neutral tonalities from black all the way to white. That's how it works. And, they couldn't comprehend that. And of course, it was a surprise and shock to me when I tried it. I did drop some ink I was rinsing a syringe. That's what I was doing. And I had a bucket of water. And I noticed that the bucket of water turned purple. And I thought, what the heck? Did I mess up? Did I use the wrong color? No. And that was the reason. So just keep that in mind. It should be a nice, fun video to watch. It'll be very visual. I recently did a video on preparing in Lightroom, just very basic layout. Now, for those of you who use Print Studio Pro, you probably don't have to worry about this, but I don't use that plugin too much. I go directly to Lightroom to prepare my layouts before I print them. They always come out lined up properly. And there is a little bit of a trick, and you've seen me do this in the past. And if you haven't, please watch that video that I just did. The person just wanted to print a 16 by 20 and center it, piece of coconut, center it in a 17 by 22 piece of paper. That's it. He wanted equal borders left and right and up and down. When he tried it, he wasn't getting equal borders left or right and up and down. Now, when you prepare a layout, in Lightroom, your upper border, as you look at it in portrait mode, whether the image is going to be horizontally viewed or not, it'll always be shown to you in portrait mode when you are printing out of the Lightroom. So the upper minimum margin will always be less than the bottom minimum margin. And the left margin and the right margin don't even match. They differ by like at 1/100th of an inch. So really, really weird. And so that's something that you need to consider when you are preparing a layout, because if you just center everything, it's going to be off center slightly, always. And in the video, I show you a trick what to do to be able to always get your layouts to be centered. And in Lightroom, of course, you can set your margins, if you will, and then fit your image to those margins. Or I love using the cell system. I create a cell that is 16 by 20. I set my margins to 0. There's a trick how to set your margins through, to 0. Something you have to do in the driver. I won't tell you what it is because I really want you to watch that video and learn the very simple answer how to set your margins to 0. So then when you set your cell, that cell, of course, is going to be centered. Okay? That's the trick. And then you throw your image on there. Make sure that your image dimensions or ratio match the ratio of that cell you're preparing. He didn't understand why I have to crop my image. Why can't it just magically fit? It doesn't. You have a rectangular, kind of squarish format, and you have a much more rectangular image to fit in it. It's going to have to be cropped. So I told him to pre-crop the image to the final ratio. 16 by 20 is a 4:5, right? Or 5:4, whichever way you want to look at it. Okay? So once he did that, he got it, and he thanked me so much for actually addressing that subject, which was actually his own question on video. I got a really snarky comment by someone who said, "Oh, you're just creating content for the sake of creating content." And I thought, what is your problem? I just explained something to you that you very likely didn't even know. And if you did, well, fine. Then you don't really belong here. You're way above us. So go someplace else and watch those really advanced videos. Yeah, that got to me. Don't come to me accusing me of creating content just for the sake of it, because I want to make money or whatever. No, silly boy, that was not the reason. Fortunately, others came in and, put him in his place. But I almost had to block him because he's one of these guys that comes across as a real jerk sometimes. I looked him up. He has 1 subscriber. So what are you talking about? How did you even find me? And if you did find me, thank you. I'm glad you watched the video anyway. But, me making content for the sake of making content, that's crazy. Sometimes I don't do anything a whole week because there's no new content that I can create that will be meaningful for you guys. You, the old timers that have been with me for years, and maybe someone brand new. Okay. Right now I'm up to 1,300 plus videos. Well, getting close to 1,400 videos. I think I've just about covered everything that needs to be covered, really, when you really think about it. Anyway, there's a lot of other ways to do that same thing, centering that, whether it's an 11 by 17 in a 13 by 19 piece of paper. There's other ways, many ways to skin a cat, like they say. So this is just my way, the way I like to do it. On Q Image is even easier. By the click of a button, you can adjust whatever size. I showed in the video the same image being loaded, centered, different sizes, automatically being cropped to fit in those different ratios. Okay. And again, if your image is 4:5, Then you can make a 4x5, you can make an 8x10, you can make a 16x20. And anything that fits that ratio. And nothing will have to be cropped, further cropped. But if you start with a 2:3 ratio, okay, that would be what? 4x6, okay, and so on. Figure out those ratios. It has to be able to be divided by those two numbers in that ratio. Otherwise, guess what you got to do? You have to crop, or you have to not print edge to edge anymore, or you have to have unequal borders, okay? Simple, it's not magic. You cannot stretch that image to make it fit. It will look distorted, right? We have Mike B, Drone Ranger. All right, brother. Hey, we got to get together. Once I feel better, I would love to fly with you in Virginia in the fall. It should be fantastic. And I'm not really familiar with what areas we can do this in. This area, as you know, is just almost impossible to find a clear spot unless you join one of those MAA clubs, and then you have to, put up with their rules and stuff. I don't like that. Anyway, I'm a free flyer. I like to be on my own wherever I want to fly. Anyway, we'll talk about that subject matter a little bit later. We are here now for about 40 minutes. So far, so good. I'm doing okay. One last question, and then I want to just answer your questions. This is stuff that I saw coming up, addressed to me either by email or other forms. Will changing carts count before or after the 60 or 120 hour cleaning cycle? And I thought, what? Okay, let's address that. And I may have to do some testing to figure that out. So we're getting into the subject of the now very famous subject of Canon printers and their, triggered cleaning cycles. Triggered by what? By time. And we used to think it was time that you didn't print. And if you printed something, it would just nullify that and reset it. Well, such is not the case, as we now know. And this is a weekly discussion. We talk about this all the time because it's very difficult for people to sort of grasp exactly what Canon has devised here for our printers' good. So they say. So what's going on? Well, you have a Pro 100. Let's use the Pro 100 just because. Dye ink. So as it prints, you have the thermal print head developing mini explosions, one explosion per droplet of ink. And just like if you take something, anything that is not, well, no, even water, maybe distilled water, if you burn a drop of distilled water on a pristine clean microscope slide or petri dish, and you heat it from underneath, and it's 100% distilled water, only H2O, nothing else. It will turn to a gas, it will evaporate, and will not leave any residue behind. Okay? Now, take the same distilled water, go to your cabinet if you're a cake maker and you make your colored frostings, get some of that food coloring. Get a nice cup of, say, 8 ounces of distilled water, and just put 1 drop of any color in there. Just 1 drop in 8 ounces. Take 1 drop of that now colored water, put it in your petri dish, apply that Bunsen burner underneath, and when the water evaporates, what do you think it's going to leave behind? The dye molecules. It'll have a nice little film of whatever that color was. If you use tap water, whether it's dyed or not, you will leave behind components from the pipes and, the minerals that tap water contains, all the chemicals that they put at the water treatment plants. They call it, the chlorine and the ammonia, chloramine they use in some of the big cities. It's a compound, and it will leave behind a residue. Well, guess what's happening inside your Canon printhead? as you explode those droplets. Now, most of it will be ejected, but some of it stays behind. You're printing thousands of little explosions per second. Okay? That's how quick it's working. And so it's creating not only those little explosions that push those droplets onto your beautiful print, but also leaving behind some residue. That residue needs to be gotten rid of. It's not because we're forcing you to perform a cleaning cycle. Not we. It's not me. Believe me. They are forcing you to for the printer to run a cleaning cycle because they suspect you haven't printed enough and you may have a clog. No, it's to keep that printhead clean. When I say keep that printhead clean, people always think because it's clogged and it needs to be cleaned. No, I like to use the term cleared when I'm referring to a clogged printhead. Okay, you run a cleaning cycle and you clear it. But this is different. This is cleaning. So it's removing debris that is building up as you print. Now, dye ink will not produce as much debris or residue as pigment ink. So that's why there's a difference. The Pro 100 is every 5 days or 150 hours. No, 160 hours. Oh, man. The room is spinning. And the Pro 10 and up, all beam pigment printers, is 60 hours. So you got half the time before it will then trigger a cleaning cycle. That cleaning cycle is necessary so then as you continue printing, your printhead remains free of residue that builds up. So you print something and it triggered a cleaning cycle. Get your stopwatch ready. Hit it right now. It'll start to count. And that one print that you made developed a cleaning cycle, maybe used up, 4 total milliliters of ink. I don't know how much. A certain amount of ink got used. Pro 1000 has a nice internal user replaceable maintenance cart. So that went in there. Your Pro 100, your Pro 10, your Pro 1 do not have those. They have internal pads. That's where that ink went. Well, you may have printed, one of these. And it used about 1.5 milliliters total ink to produce that print. And it's total. It has nothing to do with the number of cartridges. It has to do with the volume of ink required to leave this much density on a piece of paper. Okay? So whether it has 4 colors or 12 colors, it will always use about 1.5 ml about for a normal density image like this. Okay, this is considered your standard. So this used about 1.5 ml of ink. So compare that with the amount of ink that was used during that cleaning cycle, okay, which was about maybe 3 to 4, 5. It depends. The more cartridges you have, the more ink it will use globally across the board. So guess what used up more ink? The cleaning cycle did than you use for printing on that paper. So say now you say, okay, so I'm going to wait another 5 days and print me another print because I don't have anything to print right now. So you come back in 5 days, plus you just, went over 60 hours. That next print will trigger yet another cleaning cycle. You will waste another 3 to 4 to 5 ml of ink. I don't know how much it actually uses. So, and guess what? You printed that second print. It used up maybe, let's say 2 ml. Maybe it was a very dense image, very, full of very dense colors. So you used up a little bit more ink. You still used up more ink on the cleaning cycle than you did for creating prints. Is that a very economical way to print? Of course not. Physically, you're using more ink on the cleaning cycle. Now, the scenario that I like to use is to take those 60-hour windows of time. Okay, so I printed here, boom, created a cleaning cycle. I start my stopwatch, and I have a big job to print. Okay, yes, it's going to use up a lot of ink because I got to make a lot of prints. Say I got to make 100 prints like this. Got to make 100 prints like this, so it's going to use up 150 milliliters of ink. Okay, and let's forget about our small Pro 100 cartridges for the moment. Let's make believe that it's running on a CIS unit, continuous ink flow. So you will use 150 milliliters of ink. Wow, that's a lot of ink, but yeah, I produced 100 prints. Okay, you didn't. You produced 2. I produced 100 prints. In my 101 print, which came right at that 120 hour mark, generated another cleaning cycle, and the clock starts again. I start my timer again. You see what I mean? So I wasted probably 8 to 10 ml of ink to keep my printhead clean, but I produced 101 prints. I used more ink for the only reason you should have a printer to begin with, to produce photo prints. You see what I mean? So yeah, you're going to use ink. That's, you're always going to use ink. And if you're refilling, why are you worried about that? Okay? If you're using OEM only, I can see your point, but, please consider the fact that if you don't, you're going to waste more ink on the cleaning cycle, proportionally by 3 to 4 times more. You're throwing away at the cost per ml for OEM is like around $1 something per milliliter. Okay, so think about that. So the idea is always to print more, and I know I preach this constantly. My boy Eli here, he prints a lot, and he's refilling that Pro 100. So he is generating cleaning cycles, sure, but he's also using all of that ink mostly to print photos, cards, whatever he prints. Now he's doing all sorts of things. He's doing resin coated prints. He's not using the ink to resin coat his internal paths. You see what I'm saying? So the same thing applies, but just at a smaller window with the pigment-based printers from Canon. You only have 60 hours to get as many prints as you need done before you trigger another cleaning cycle. So what people don't understand at all is the relationship between the 60-hour time frame and the 120 and the 240 and the 480. What does that mean? Well, simply, tick-tock, you generate a cleaning cycle because you printed something. Could have been a nozzle check. A simple nozzle check generated a cleaning cycle. Timer starts. And 60 hours pass and you still don't want to print even a cleaning cycle. So prior to that 60 hours, that's your get out of jail free card. No cleaning cycles will be generated. That's when you should be printing. Okay. Then once you get past that 60 hour, you got another 60 hours before 120 hours, right? After the first 60 hours and 1 second, anything you print after that will generate a clean cycle. You say, oh, well, forget it. I'm not printing anything. And all of a sudden, 120 hours pass. Now your cleaning cycle is going to be larger. There's no escape now. There's no escaping this. The next print job or nozzle check or anything that causes that print head to move side by side and lay down some ink, I shouldn't have done that, will generate another cleaning cycle. And it'll be a much larger one. So the question here is this. What happens, specifically with the Pro 10 with the smaller cartridges and the Pro 1 with the even smaller cartridges? And why those two particular ones? Why not the Pro 1 or the Pro 1000? Well, they got big cartridges, first of all. But one very important point is that those two printers, Pro 1 and the Pro 1000, don't have cartridges that ride on the print head along with it. Okay, they're stationary. Those printers do not generate a purge cycle when you switch from one empty to a full one. Okay, and the reason they don't do that is because you have ink lines and internal dampers in the print heads. There's no need to flush the print head. Okay, there's no aspiration of air that could possibly occur when you physically remove a cartridge from a Pro 1 or a Pro 100, I should say, and a Pro 10. When you remove that cartridge, you have a direct line between that port that that cartridge kisses and seals itself against, and that channel, the corresponding channel set of nozzles on your nozzle plate. Air can get in, especially since that print head literally has moved over to the most vulnerable position, the center of the carriage travel. Air gets in. Air definitely gets in. So it gets in not only on that one, but it can also get in on the other channels. Not so much because you still have a cartridge kind of blocking it, but it just doesn't have a choice. If one channel is aspirating air, all 8 channels have to be primed. Same thing on the Pro 10. All 10 channels have to be primed. And so what happens when you change one cartridge and you close the lid, it goes back to the right, and you may hear some action taking place, and it'll start to perform that little purge cycles. Does that count as a cleaning cycle? Does that trigger that clock to be set back to 0 again? That is something we do not know. Now, another question was, and this person adamantly said that yes, that should not happen. I've always said when you unplug a printer from the wall, okay, even when you turn it off from the button, it will trigger a cleaning cycle when you turn it back on. I have to go back and readdress that physically, actually check it. When I get a B200 error on my Pro 1 and I pull the plug out and I wait a few minutes and I plug it back on and power it back on, it runs a big cleaning cycle, okay? Even though I may have run a cleaning cycle just, the other day, okay? So something that needs to be actually tested, and if I do find some data that correlates that theory, I forgot to tell you what the theory is, sorry. There's an internal battery in all printers, and for printers with very sophisticated memory systems, memory storage systems, like the Canon printers have, especially the Pro 1 and up, I was told by this one person that it will not trigger that huge clean cycle because it remembers what the timer was set at. So we'll see. In other words, my theory is that when you unplug it, it just believes that it was off for, not used for 480 plus hours. And it'll trigger the deepest cleaning cycle that you can actually generate. Regardless, whether you just had a cleaning cycle 5 minutes ago, if you pull the plug, the next time you plug it back up, it will run that 480 hour cleaning cycle. That's what I say. That's not what he says. Okay, so we'll check that. It should be interesting. So what's going on? So what if I have a Pro 100 and I print something today, generates a cleaning cycle, and I print something tomorrow, no cleaning cycle because I have 5 days to print with, and all of a sudden I run out of ink on one cartridge and I change it, and that generates a cleaning cycle or purge cycle. Does that set the clock back to 0? You see what I'm saying? Because no cleaning cycle would be generated normally between 0 hour and 120 hours, or 1 second before 120 hours. You see, does a purge cycle occurring somewhere before that set everything back to 0 again? I'm not sure. That's another thing to test. Do we really care? I really don't care, but this person apparently does. I really don't care. The reason I say that is because I'm using Precision Colors Signature Edition. I am printing at 1/10 the original cost, just about. So why would I care? So long as my printhead is being kept happy and clean and healthy, I don't care. I don't care. No need to care. If that's all that's happening, and that action by itself is keeping my printhead happy and healthy, I don't care. Especially printing at 1/10 or so the cost. And it depends on what volumes you buy. Of course, your cost per milliliter will change. Had it been OEM, oh yeah, then I would care a lot, okay? But since we're printing with a much lower cost per milliliter, then, you know, it really is not a big issue. Being something that has to be done anyway. So, alrighty. Let's see. Harold Goldberg says, I have two Epson Artisans 837s. I am very familiar with that one. Only ones. There are 6 colors, Claria dye-based ink. I use it for glossy, semi-gloss, and satin papers for up to 8.5 by 11. Anything larger, I use the Pro 100. Yeah, I had an earlier version of that. I like that 837. They had an 838 also. And great printers. Oh my gosh, I love that printer. The only problem was mine just decided to just go down the tubes. I even had a sys hooked up to mine. Yep, and there's a trick to doing that, or actually the magnetic sensor that designates the lid from being open or closed, you can fool it. And yeah, it worked perfectly. And I love that printer. It had the best CD, DVD disc print system ever designed. Okay? Perfectly aligned results every single time. I loved it. I adored that printer. They did away with that design. It had a user replaceable waste ink tank underneath it. You just unscrew this little knurled knob, pull it out, put a new one in. $22. Yeah, fantastic. So I don't know why they did away with that particular design, and I think they went to the expression models now and some of the new workforce models. But yeah, I love that printer, and never failed me. It was wonderful. Great Wi-Fi signal. You can print from across, from one end of the house to the other, and no problem at all. All right, let's quickly take a look at what's happening here in Facebook. Again, so far so good. I'm hanging in there, folks. I can't turn to make drastic movements with my head, but right now we're about 45 away from 3,000 members. Let me go ahead and say howdy to our new members this week. We got 32 new members. We're going to post a nice hello to them and welcome them all to the group. The fold, if you will. That's how I like to call it. That's how I view it. And let's see what's being asked. Let's go ahead and switch us over to the desktop view here. My prints are coming out as what they are on my monitor. They seem to be darker. Well, my prints aren't coming out. So again, how many times have we heard that before, folks? That's got to be the most common question ever asked. they seem to be darker and the colors are not as vibrant. I have my monitor set to photo mode. He's not calibrated. Yeah, he is not calibrated. Photo mode is just a standard preset from the factory. I have used a spider to calibrate the monitor, and the profile makes very little difference to the screen, so the factory calibration must be very close. No, I think it's the other way around. Yeah. I wish you guys could see visually the difference about now. And I just had a Windows update, and my monitor profile that I created with my i1 Pro 2 was not loading automatically. And my screen was super bright. The contrast was off. And overall, it had a very yellow tint. So I reprofiled everything, and now everything is nice. It's now at the correct level of luminance, which is very low, but it looks great to me in my dim room. It looks perfect. My black tones, basically, if you look really close, you don't have any pixels lighting up on your screen. That's the way it should be. Okay. So basically, his prints are not matching his monitor. Very typical situation, happens all the time. And again, it's one of the first things that people, and I could just tell that he's not very advanced in this field yet. And he's basically experiencing what everyone else has experienced in the past. Monitors are over bright. Okay, I don't care what you use to calibrate them with. You have to manually set that luminance down. He's probably running about 120 right now. He should be at 80 CD Candela CDM2. And so that has been proven to me to be the perfect situation for me here in this room. I just have my side blinds up on my door. My door has a nice window on it, about 3 feet by 2 wide, and I have that open right now. We still have some northern light coming in here, and then I got 260 watt bulbs that I don't have on right this minute, but normally I have that on. I have the blinds closed, and that is my ambient conditions. So I have pretty much a constant condition here in my room. So no matter what time of the day or night, the middle of the night it could be, it doesn't really matter, or noon, my conditions here are always the same. So bringing down the luminance on my monitor, and that has to be done through your software for your calibrator, okay, not visually. I just did this. Let me tell you, I just did the calibration using this. It takes like 10 minutes to calibrate the monitor. It is linearizing everything, okay? So it's not just bringing down the brightness. It's adjusting your neutral, your white, in other words, your 3 color pixel triads, producing a neutral color. Okay, call it gray. From nothing all the way to what it considers to be white. As it goes through the various steps, and they are like 20 something steps that it goes through, it's making sure that as it increases a little bit of intensity on each of those 3 pixels, red, white, and blue create a neutral tone if they are perfectly balanced. So as it is creating these steps, it is measuring each one and making sure that that new increase remains neutral. So it's going to make a curve, and it will adjust as it needs to. And then it's going to remember that. Okay. And when it is done, it's going to apply that curve to my what would be my highly inaccurate monitor, to make sure I have a tiltable monitor, and it was tilted a little bit, to make sure that I am neutrally linear when it comes to just a gray, display from black all the way to white. It'll be a straight line when in reality it is not. And so it's applying that correction curve, 22 little samplings it took to make sure that when that curve is applied, it neutralizes everything and linearizes everything from dark all the way to white. Well, guess what? It has to do that with R, G, and B and everything in between. It runs 118 patches, and each of them are linearized. So what you end up with is this extremely, extremely accurate profile, even for this monitor. This monitor was $500 when I first bought it, like 8-9 years ago. Not a cheap monitor, but it's not what what's considered to be a high-end monitor by today's standard. It's not 4K. It's not Adobe RGB. It's sRGB, but it does a great job. Anyway, when it does that as well, it will do the same thing for your contrast setting. Contrast has to be set correctly in luminosity. So at the end, you see the huge difference. You do it before and after, you go, oh my God. Yeah, okay. And so if I view something, it's not going to be displayed to me exaggerated. It's not going to be explained to me. It's not going to be displayed to me so that it looks brighter and more pop and more saturated and more everything than it should be. It's going to be displayed to me closer to what it's going to look like on paper. So when I view the finished result, I am not shocked. This is not darker than I saw it on my monitor at all. If I do a ramp, okay, if I load a standard image, and I have so many standard images, where just 0, 0, 0, and then all the way up to 255, which is just pure white. In other words, you shouldn't use any ink at all. And I view it on my monitor. My 0, 0, 0, none of those pixels in that little square will even begin to light up. Okay, if your monitor is too bright, then that 0, 0, 0 square will actually have some density, will actually be lit up a little bit. That's too bright. Your monitor is too bright. It has to be brought down so that 0, 0, 0, which means nothing, no pixels should light up. Okay, once you bring it down to like 80, 85, it makes that black sample black. In other words, it'll look like the monitor is off, and it's all the way up equally. So then the next step, 222, will have a little bit more density. You should be able to tell the difference between 222 and 000 and 444. It jumps in sets of 2 all the time. 6, 8, 10, 12, like that. All the way to 255. 254 will be the brightest with the most minuscule amount of ink. In other words, a tiny little bit of density. And then the next one is just the paper base, no ink. You should be able to see that on your monitor. Again, and the key is to have nothing light up on that 0, 0, 0. Nothing. Okay? If it lights up some pixels, your monitor is too bright. So you look at it, and of course, when you print it, guess what? This does not transmitted light. This is reflective light. Right now, it's only window light, my little LEDs that are lighting me right now. It's the only thing that's lighting this image, this print. So, of course, it's going to seem darker. It's going to seem less vibrant, not as brilliant as the one version that you see through your backlit monitor. That's it. Chas Madge, who is a very wise guy, he in more ways than one, but he knows what he's doing and he knows what he's talking about. And I'm very happy he's a member of this group. Basically put him in his place. He's just telling him like it is. It's too bright. The monitor is simply too bright. So just keep that in mind when you begin to get into this. And I don't think I have any newbies here with me tonight. I think everyone here is pretty much been doing this for a while. You guys know that when you first started, if your prints match your monitor, then it was mostly by luck. Okay. And that happened to me one time, and then after that, it just all went to hell on a handbasket. After that, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I was changing settings here and there. I mean, I wasn't keeping track of anything, and my results were horrible. That went on for a good year and a half to 2 years before I finally got it in my stubborn head that I needed to listen to some people and follow their advice. And then finally, I kind of had an awakening, and I knew that relationship of this compared to that and so forth, and got me down the straight path. So the right path. And so once I accepted that, and I figured out that I needed to have certain things nailed down as far as settings and conditions, then it all went relatively simple after that. Eli says, wait a second here. Stu Roll. I joined just at the right time. Yes. Glad to have you here. Boy, I just moved and nothing happened. Awesome. I hope that is a good omen. Eli says, what size is your monitor? It's 24 inch. 24 inch. It is a HP W2408 vivid color widescreen LCD monitor with bright view panel. Picture perfect. 1920 by 1200. That's what it says. I haven't even taken the plastic off of it. So it served me fine. Served me just fine. I'm able to very, very accurately edit things, and those edits actually translate to what for example, my Pro 1000 spits out. So, and again, you have to accept the fact that certain colors are just not going to be reproduced. Okay, you have colors represented here in front of you that are created from that triad of RGB cluster of pixels, just like your color TV, just like your 4K or 1080p TV upstairs. That's different than compositing that same value with cyan, yellow, magenta. Totally different. Primary color system using light. That's the purest way to do this. When you flip over to dyes or pigments, then you got to use the secondary colors. So if you look at a color wheel, you have red. What's across red, folks? Cyan. What's across green? Magenta. What's across blue? Yellow. And blue in this case is more like purple, okay? So yellow and purple dye create a gray tone. Cyan and what? Red dye create cyan and red. Yeah, cyan and red is the opposite. They neutralize each other. And yellow, blue neutralize each other, and magenta and green neutralize each other. So to make green ink, you need yellow ink and cyan ink. To make red ink, you need yellow ink and magenta ink. But if you take yellow ink, yellow light, and magenta light, you get something else. To create yellow light, you need green and red. Isn't that odd? Green and red light mixed together creates yellow light. That's your secondary color. I remember all of this from school, but it comes in my ear and out the other. I'm too old to remember all of this stuff. But anyway, that's how it works. So you have to understand that it's more difficult to be able to accurately reproduce a value you see. It may be out of the gamut, the possible gamut, if you will, or the possible ability for that ink set to be mixed in any way, shape, or form, proportion, whatever. It may not be able to reproduce that color you see. So when you get your print coming out of the printer and you see, wait a minute, that's not the color red I see on my monitor. Well, yes, that's the best the printer can do, even with a profile. That's the best you can do. So don't be surprised if some colors, especially nowadays, a lot of people like to edit and increase contrast and increase saturation. I do that with my videos as well. You know, I use a very flat profile for recording on my, my drone camera. Use a flat profile, and then I apply a LUT, a lookup table, and increase color that way. And yeah, it's not the natural look, but it sure looks good though. Whereas a lot of people are purists, and they will never edit anything. They straight out of the camera, boom, to print. I used to know a guy that did that. Drove me nuts. He always printed whatever the raw image produced. And raw is a flat profile. Anyway, enough of that. Eli says, are there other, let's see, he says, I'm going to be getting a new MacBook Pro because my current one doesn't have the high enough specs. With that, I would like to get a new monitor. I'm looking at LG 32. Yeah, that'll work. Or are there any other monitors you recommend? I really do not know, Eli. Not a monitor expert here. Sorry. BenQ is supposed to be very good. We discussed that, I believe, last week while you were away. If anyone here can help Eli, feel free to jump in and help him. Leif Wickland from Sweden jumped in here at about, what time is it? I can't tell. It doesn't show me the time. Anyway, so again, got a Swede here with us. Wonderful. I hope it's not too late for you over there. I always marvel at the fact that people from Europe are actually taking the time to jump in here and watch this bit of a, sometimes a catastrophe. But we do our best. That's the best we can do here. Let's see. Someone here is on Lightroom Classic and printing to a Canon Pro 100. Notice the commonality here. It's either a P600 from Epson. Hardly anyone is using the P400. I wonder why. Those of you guys who complain about, your photos don't have enough pop, or colors are not dull, or a little bit duller than what, get a P400. Get a P400. You'll be shocked at the results you get. Super brilliant, vivid prints. They are perfect for certain image types or certain ways that you edit. If you do HDR editing, basically you shoot a lot of series of shots from a overexposed down to an underexposed and then blend them together so you get a huge dynamic range, and then you tone it. You do your local toning. Use that P400, okay? The results are great, especially for color. Not so good for black and white or monochrome, because it just uses one black, either one or the other. Plus, the fact that it doesn't need to use a black ink switch valve to go from matte black to photo black just makes it a winner in my view. And another advantage of it, okay? Yes, you have full, I'm talking about the R2000, the earlier version. Basically the same thing. P400 is the newest version. R2000 is the earlier version, but exactly the same ink set. One thing that I love about the R2000 is that you can buy OEM ink sets, all 8 of them, for like $30, because this printer is used in the DTG or direct-to-garment printing industry. And so they cannot use the original ink. So they buy a lot of printers and they sell those packs of inks to people on eBay for like, I used to buy them for $10 each for the full set. Believe it or not, yes. I right now got about 15 full sets of inks for the R2000. I got to revive that printer, I swear. I got to get that printer back online and begin to use it again because it's really, really great. The P400, fully supportable by third-party sources. No problem. And it really does produce some really neat results on matte or glossy. Anyway, let's just continue on. Lightroom, to manage the printing as I have been unable to download PSP. Let's not go there. PSP, well, anyway, I know in PSP when printing black and white, I could tell it that it only uses black and gray. No, it does not. Why do people believe that? No, it does not. It can't. It just can't. Remember, black ink is purple. Do you want purple prints? No. So it just doesn't use black ink and gray. How can I accomplish that in the printing part of Lightroom Classic? You just choose that in the driver. The driver has that option as well. Let me quickly show you that. You don't need PSP. I should be pushing PSP. I don't know why I don't. I just find it another step to go through. Let's pick the Pro 100 here. Okay. So here's our panel. What do you guys see right smack in the middle left? I don't know whether you can see that clearly or not, but black and white photo print. If you click on that, and you don't need to have this on anymore. If you click on that, even if your photo was originally a full color RGB file or an RGB file that you converted to black and white, still RGB. Now we will print it in black and white or monochrome. It will use, yes, it will use black, it will use grays, but it will also use the other colors. It needs to. It needs to composite them to remove that non-neutral condition that black ink is. Okay? So what you would do when you print with just black and white mode, you don't need to have, see how everything now is neutral? Take a look. I never really noticed this. Look at that. And you can adjust the tonality. You see that how it's going to a warm, yellowish, cyan, greenish. So leave it at neutral. Print it, and if it comes out neutral, then you're good to go. Intensity, contrast, brightness, all of that is there to allow you to adjust your results. Now, you just set it to ICM, not none, ICM. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Notice that it locks that out. Okay, just see that. It just locked that out. Let's test that again. I just learned something, folks. Let's remove that. Let's put it back to color. And let's see what happens. Yeah, now you can set it. So it will automatically lock out that setting for you. Isn't that neat? So black and white. And that is locked. Look at that. You cannot move it. But you can adjust your tone. Say if your print comes out a little bit too bluish. Well, meaning in this direction, so you're going to go against that in the opposite direction. Do another test. And now it's neutral. That's it. That's going to be your setting from now on for that particular paper when you use that black and white mode. See, that's something I never use. I print all my monochromes using the regular full RGB workflow. I use the profile. I get just as good a result than if I was just using mostly black ink and gray inks with a little bit of yellow and magenta to help neutralize my results. I get better results using the full-blown CMYK or RGB, whatever you want to call it. In other words, all the colors are being used to composite neutral tones. I get great results that way as well. This was printed not in black and white mode, okay? This was printed, of course, in color mode, just like this was. Not black and white mode, color mode. If you print in color mode and you take a quick look at your areas of neutrality, that ramp, right there, this image right here, and it looks neutral to you, then really there's no need to use black and white mode. Why would you? Okay, why make things more difficult? Create yet another way of printing, another set of settings that you may have to adopt. Why bother? Unless you really want to try it out of curiosity. It's there for you to try, just like Epson has advanced black and white. Again, with the same adjustable tonal ranges. You can make it slightly cooler, slightly warmer, or perfectly neutral. Yeah, it allows you to do that. You can tone the prints. That's the only advantage that black and white mode or advanced black and white mode in Epson printers offers you, the ability to tone the image one way or another. But heck, you can do that in Photoshop. You can do that in Lightroom. Turn it into a black and white and tone it. And send it with the full-blown color printing process using an ICC profile. You cannot use ICC profiles when you use advanced black and white or black and white mode in Canon printers. You can't. So that's an option. I mean, it's up to you. Up to you. Somebody says here that they love their R2000. I do too. That's the reason I just didn't think it was necessary for me to buy a P400. People saying, why didn't you buy any of the new Epson printers? Because they're not new. They really aren't. The P800 is not really new either. It's just a glorified 3880. But they added that roll adapter, and that intrigued me. And I said, okay, that's going to bring that printer several notches above the 3880. So yeah, I'm going to invest on that one. And I got it for a ridiculously low price. It was a sad situation. This gentleman passed away, and the wife didn't know what to do with all his stuff. Got it for $395, plus about $60 shipping. And it'd been used, gosh, like just a couple times. The same thing happened with my Pro 1000. Same exact situation. And I got it for like a third of the price. So, yeah, had Epson come up with something new, from the ground up design. But no, that wasn't the case. So that's why I haven't really upgraded to anything except the P800. Black ink switch valve, I talked to Mike about that. He says that he doesn't know whether they in fact did revise that. But the fact is that my P800 black ink switch valve is working like the Dickens. Is perfect. Nothing, no problems. Now, you might ask, well, why they should have announced that? They should have said that. No, they shouldn't have said that. They can't say that. If they say that, they're admitting that they had a faulty component in all that previous family of printers that use 9 colors on an 8-channel print head. Okay, and they had to come up with some way to share the 2 blacks. They're not about to admit that. So that's not a point they're going to brag about. Okay, you might ask an engineer, hey, George, did you guys redesign that valve? He may slip and tell you. But, whether they did or not, so far so good. Just like the 4900, now the P5000. Did they admit that the 4900 was a dog? And that they then redesigned it from the ground up to be the P5000, which is now a reliable printer? They're not about to admit that. All they're going to say is that they designed a new printer for you guys to enjoy. That's it. That's all they're going to ever admit. They're not ever going to tell you that, yeah, we had to, oh man, that thing was a dog and we had to redesign it. Gee, I hope you guys, forgive us. And here it is at a discount. No, that's not going to happen. How much RAM does my computer have? I think it's 32 gigabytes. Let me check again. Let me check. Let me go to my systems. Yeah, 32 gigabyte memory. It's got a Intel Core. Oh, I gotta get up close, folks. Forgive me. Intel Core i7 4790K CPU, 4.00 gigahertz and 4.00 gigahertz. I don't know what that means, but anyway, 32 gig of memory, 64-bit operating system, blah 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 blah. I think for the, let me see what my graphic card is. The graphic card is a good one. Device manager, display adapter. It's an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1070 with, I believe, it's either 4 or 8 gig memory. So yeah, it's good, and it's a CUDA core, so it can actually come into play when you're rendering, when you're doing video rendering, when you're doing any kind of high, super high size-wise image rendering, effects, that type of things. It will then put the CPU kind of aside and will use the GPU to render out. When I do 4K renders for my videos, I'm mostly using my CPU, and I can actually do it. It used to be where I could only do, like, say, a 5-minute 4K video would require about 4 times the time to render, okay, maybe even more. So now it does it faster than real time. So a 5-minute video would be rendered out in like 2.5 minutes, depending on what kind of output bit rate I want to do that video in. So if you have a video you shot with a camera that shot at 10 megabit per second, you have to render to that level. Otherwise, you're going to get what looks like not pixelation, but especially when scenes where frames are changing rapidly. By that I mean that frame number 1 and frame number 2 will have drastically different. You know what I mean? Like a fast pan, that would be something that would require high bit rate. You would have to actually render each frame to a high bit rate, whereas something that is a stationary series of frames where the drone is not moving, let's just say, or your camera is not moving, you can use low bit rate. A lower bit rate, you're not going to have any kind of degradation of the image. So you can render out to variable bit rate, single pass or 2 pass, or render to a steady high bit rate. It will create a larger file, more difficult to upload to YouTube, of course, but it will at least render everything to a high level of bit rate. And when I shoot with my Bebop 2 cameras, which has a lower bit rate capture, of course not as good as the Anafi, not as good as your Mavic Pro, you need to render out equal the bit rate that your video was captured at or higher. And for that, you need a powerful CPU and a powerful GPU. Otherwise, you'll have to go to bed and let it render. Yeah, MacBook Pro, $4,000. Why is Mac so expensive, Eli? Please explain that to me. Especially since nothing is proprietary anymore. That has always been what's kept me from even wanting a Mac. I used to use a Mac 20 years ago when I worked in the lab, because all of the lab software, especially DNA analysis software, was only for Mac computers. But when I started printing, I gave it up. I said, oh my God, no, I can't keep up with this. And, drivers weren't really supporting Mac too much at the time, and a lot of people were making mistakes. Even today, they're taking a new printer and immediately plugging it into their Mac computer and letting Mac do its magic, and they get the AirPrint driver with nothing, with no settings. Oh, I'm not seeing the settings you have. What's going on? You didn't install the proper driver. Automation kind of gets in the way sometimes, and the so far color management being automated has not caused too many problems, although people do still run into problems, and I don't know how, but I like everything to be manual. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so these Anafi videos are proving to be a bit more difficult to edit even on my computer. So yeah, it's all about that. And I remember when, getting off the subject here a little bit, I remember when the days of, Windows 3 point something, 3.1 or something like that, programs were very low demanding in resources. So as programs got more demanding, new OSs were created, and more and more and more. It never reached a point where a super powerful computer today can do something faster than you could do it, say, 5-10 years ago. I really haven't seen that great a difference in performance, because the programs become more demanding, more and more demanding. So they demand more resources. You feed them more resources, but then the next generation of programs comes out, they require more resources and more and more and more and more. It's crazy. Eli says a new Mac Pro that will be shipping this fall will be able to have up to 1.5 terabyte RAM and cost $7,000. See what I mean? That's way, way too much money for a computer. You can build something, you can build a tower for half that price. But anyway, I know you're a Mac guy, so I'll leave you alone. I know Ken Heron just had a system built by, I think the guy that does the news for him. That's the one that he's using. Yeah, I definitely did miss that 40K. Yeah. That's getting on that's bordering, not bordering, that is over the hill of the ridiculous, if you ask me. Alrighty. Let's see what else we got here. I just saw your shots of the, let me show everybody here. Eli shot this, folks. How long ago? Have a look, boys. Look at that. Not bad. Not too shabby, man. Not too shabby. Very good. You say you like the Apple ecosystem. Yeah, you're just used to that. That's the whole thing. It's almost like a cult. Let me tell you. I don't mean to be insulting in any way. Forgive me. But it is. You go to the Apple stores in the malls and you see hordes of people just sitting there. They're not buying anything. They're just playing with the stuff they have on display. And it is again, yeah, it's a fan club, let's just say. But I understood the days when it was all proprietary, but now it's basically pretty much not. And if you look at the specifications of one model and then come up with, the same thing plus more, you will get more for the same money you would have spent for that ecosystem, as you call it. And for me, it's just, I don't care. It performs a job. I'm not in it to say, hey, let me show you my PC, or let me show you my Mac, or let me show you my Mavic, or let me show you my Anafi. It's whatever works. If that Anafi flies like crap, then I don't care about my Anafi. If my Mavic Pro crashes every time I take it up, maybe it's my fault as a crappy, pilot. But again, it's not the tool, it's the user behind the tool. So I'm not going to get into, oh, I love my computer because it is a Windows machine. No, I could give a, you know what? Does it render my videos quickly and accurately and without any kind of artifacts in a reasonable amount of time? Can I edit on it? Is my monitor presenting me with the correct colors that I can then send over to my XYZ printer and I get a gorgeous print back? That's all that matters. It's the final goal. How you get there, that's that's your own choice. But it has nothing to do really with a brand name. Does that model have the features that you want? Then fine. Is it I saw so many fancy speakers, like stereo speakers, that when you open them up, there's all kinds of fake stuff inside. Huh? What? Yeah, but when you hear it at the store, it sounds good enough. So even if it's got a fake woofer inside or a fake tweeter, if it sounds good enough for you and you're willing to pay whatever money they ask for it, that's fine. Your ears are the final judge. Your eyes are the final judge. Your hands on that controller and the interaction between your eyes and your hands, that's the final judge. So I'm not in it to make one brand above the other. I think that's kind of silly. A silly game that people get caught up in. Anyway, let's see. Jeff Thompson says, luckily, those reinstall days have gone by with Windows 10. I think Windows 10 is going to be like the last version of Windows. It just keeps on updating, just like, at least it doesn't change its name to various national parks like Mac does, or Red River Papers. They're named after sites in Texas. So it's weird. I'm sorry. You could call it, let's call it a letter / number. That's all that matters. Like Mercedes, Class C, whatever. Like a Chrysler 300, Chrysler 200. Just call it a name, and that's good enough for me. Yeah. In Korea, the Air Force bases did not have names. They were just K2, K14, K17. You just knew it was a Korean Air Force base. All righty, let's continue on before we get off the subject here. Let me take some more. Jose, can you have a look at my question back at the 1.22 mark? You mean here in the chat? I don't see it that way. I don't see it numbered like that. So you may have to ask me the question again. At the 1.22 mark of what? The chat? Let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. Steve Bloom says, hello, Jose. I have now sent 3 inquiries to X-Writer. No response. They are horrible. Horrible. How about that? Yes. I love their tools. Okay. I don't love their lack of updating their software. Their tools are fantastic. They're like, the industry standards out there. Like Photoshop is to imaging. Okay. So I'm not surprised. Let me continue here. And because of this, I will never buy their products. I was prepared to spend a fair amount of money. Yeah. What do you want to know? Ask me, and maybe I know. George Gabb says to Eli, an SS drive will really help. In my old Mac, I was running 32 gig. My new old 64 gig with 10 gigs being used as RAM disk, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Eli, are you running a... Oh, he already says that they're all running SSDs anyway, so that doesn't really matter. I think they're starting a conversation on their own, and that's good. That is good. All right. Where are we at? Jeff Thompson, hello. Should I read this? Jeff Thompson says the Mac Pro is for guys like Casey Neistat. What do you mean by that, man? I like Casey. People with that many subs will still edit their own videos. Yeah, he does. He still does. That's amazing. And recently, I think he's moving out of his, if not already, moved out of the New York studio. And I saw a video where he was tearing it up. And I know about the, what was that business that he started, that new venture. I don't know how that's going, but I think he's kind of separating himself from that a little bit. Casey is a trip. I like him a lot. He did come up from nothing. Michael McLean, Jose, can you take a look at my question? Yeah. Please ask that again, Michael, please, because I cannot find it. Let me see if I can find your name earlier. Here we go. Hello from the mountains of Alaska. It's all you said. But I don't see you here any longer until now. Did you mean back at the 1.22 mark? 1.22 mark of what? A video? What are you referring to? Art Women Photography is here from Australia. Hello, Jose, he says. Alrighty. How's everything, my friend? Jeff Thompson says, Jose, I just had to reinstall Windows 10 recently, I believe. And yeah, well, it's not a bad idea to do that every once in a while. It's not really because of Windows. It's really because of your hardware or whatever. I had a problem where, because my computer was scratch built, it was hand built by someone for me. And somehow, and I have no clue how this happens. Remember the old days where the CPU had to be sandwiched between a blob of heat paste? Well, now, of course, you don't have to, and everything's pretty much self-aligned. Well, the CPU somehow got a little bit off alignment, at least that's what they told me. And so I just had them install a new version of Windows. They would not take my original disk that I still have the rights to that serial number. They had to charge me $99 for a new copy of Windows 10, and they installed it. I got now that new serial number and whatever, so it doesn't really matter. Occasionally when things go haywire, and it's usually, something at your end in your computer, then you can do a refresh installation, and it'll put you back in line. It'll save all your data and everything. So normally if I have to do that, I just start from scratch. I don't have a lot of programs that I couldn't just simply reinstall anyway. So, and I keep all my important documents elsewhere. So not a big deal. Always a good thing to start from fresh. Michael McLean says yes. Yes from yes what? Yes, it was from a video. What video? Eli says the max SSDs can write up to 3 gigabytes per second, but they cost like $1,000 per terabyte. Yeah, very expensive. Very expensive. You have to sort of kind of make a decision. What do you want? Reasonable amount, speed, for rendering and that type of thing, or money, so my son just had a gaming computer built. He spent a lot of money. I would love to have that computer here. Yeah, totally overkill. Totally. But he doesn't care. But yeah, you can spend $100,000. Like I said, I don't know what Ken Heron's paid for that computer, but it is a killer computer. Jeff Thompson says, I like Casey too, but he's killing it on YouTube and can afford a Mac Pro. Yeah, he does quite well. Doesn't do as well as PewDiePie though. PewDiePie, he is a miracle. What can I tell you? Sit through one of PewDiePie's videos and you'll be scratching your head like, just how did this happen? Hey, I can't argue with success. He found a way. Yeah. He found a way. He makes in one day, just from the channel alone, not his merch, nothing, just from the channel, what I would make in this channel, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years worth of revenue. Yeah, in one day. So, again, you cannot argue with that. He found the secret. Okay, Michael McLean is back. I am looking for someone with a fraction of your knowledge regarding the HP 89180. I don't know that model, especially HP. They have left the photo printing market, and so I'm sorry. Oh, HPB 9980. I don't know that one. Let me look it up for you. He says it seems ink has been discontinued, and see lots of third-party ink refill sites. Wondering your opinions. Let's quickly take a look. Might as well, right? Let's have a look-see here. And we'll go directly to HP's store online. We'll type in that. Here we go. Okay, HP B9180 PhotoSmart photo printer. They have ink right here. There's ink. I see ink, my friend. You want to see? Tell me if maybe I made a mistake. This is it. Let me double check. I don't want to show something that is not. There we go. Yeah, that's a match. So what were you saying, that there's no ink available for it now? According to this, there might be. It's not cheap. Are these relatively large cartridges? It seems that they would have to be for that particular price. What do you think? Oh, printheads, I'm sorry. Well, you didn't say printheads earlier. So does it have a removable printhead? Or are the printheads part of the cartridge? Because that's the way most of the earlier HP printers were. HP printers used to use thermal printheads as well, as just like Canons. And so because of that, the cartridges had an integral printhead built into them. And you pay that much money, that much more money, because you always had a brand new printhead every time you exchange a HP. What am I doing here? An HP cart. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Gotcha. At first I thought that was ink. So they are user replaceable then. See, I've never really got involved with HP photo printers. I used to have a PhotoSmart printer at work, if I recall, a long time ago. And I don't remember whether the printhead was integral to the cartridge or not. So these are printheads. Isn't that something? Yep. Well, then, I really don't know what to tell you. I guess if it's a very, very old model, it's probably not supported any longer. And your only choice, like you said, is a third-party source. Maybe not something you want to hear, but it appears that even HP no longer has ink for it. Let me do another search here. Just pick one of these random here and see what they have. What about this? No, those are printheads. So, now wait a minute. This looks like it's a... Are you sure this is not a cartridge with an integral printhead? Or does your printer use separate cartridges that then insert into your own separate printhead? I'm thinking that these are integral printheads / carts. And again, they're thermal, so they're only really usable one run. You can't really refill them too many times. They tend to wear out quite readily. Anyway, I did try. I'm sorry, but I think that might be ink and printhead, component. In other words, it's a dual component, just like they've always done in the past. That's always been pretty much the case with most HP printers. When it came to HP, I was only interested in the Z3200 series, which is a big floor model. I mean, those things were fabulous. And I think at the time they had like a 12-color printer and able to do marvelous work. It goes way back. And I don't think they ever redid any kind of updated version. You wrote down 38 carts. Did you mean... I don't know what you mean. 8 print cartridges and 4 individual print heads. Okay. All right. Well, then that means that they are separate components then, right? Is that what you mean? All right, somebody, let's talk about... You guys go ahead and discuss that between you two here. Jeff, maybe you can help Mike, and Mike can describe to you exactly what it is that he is looking for. We'll come back to this in a second, but I want to talk a bit about a question that was posed just today on my comment section on the channel. I discussed this earlier, quite a while ago, concerning the Pro 100. And people that want to refill the Pro 100 at the time. This is long before Rick Johnson started selling these pre-flushed, ready-to-use, you know, CLI 42 cartridges that he, you know, modifies professionally for you and flushes them to pristine conditions, and you can just go ahead and use those and immediately get into whatever inkset you want to use without having to have a transitional period, because it takes quite a while for the ink that's residing in your sponge to be fully pushed out by various washes. It's like if you have a kitchen sponge and it's white, let's just believe it's white, and you dip it into some yellow dye and you squeeze it, and that basically says you have an empty sponge, just like on a Canon printer. And then you know, add some and then you here's the thing. Then you lay it on a plate full of other color ink. Remember, the ink goes from the liquid chamber through the bottom portion of the cartridge and enters the sponge from the bottom only, from the bottom, not the top, the bottom. So the ink has to enter and starts to kind of mix itself with the original OEM ink. You will see the new color ink going in, but it doesn't quite reach that top. And you then squeeze it again. And you then put it in another bowl with the same color ink, and you continue doing this until finally there's no hint of yellow on the upper part of the sponge. Let's see who's calling us. It's a spam. Anyway, let it ring. So it would take several of these soakings to passively remove the earlier yellow dye off of that sponge. And the same thing happens with cartridges. It takes several refills, maybe 3 to 4. I would say that many just to 100% remove the original ink. That's why that yellow gelling action takes place only at a certain time, maybe 2 to 3 refills down the road. That sneaks up and gets you, okay? First time, oh, you're happy, nothing happened. This is a bunch of bunk, okay? And you refill one more time. It took me 3 refills to get the yellow jelly, okay? And that almost destroyed my printhead. So he wants to know this. I discussed this in that video. You have several choices. Start with a completely flush set of cartridges, just like Rick sells. At that time, he didn't have them on sale, but you know, you could buy empties, flush them out yourself, and then let them dry and refill those and completely switch over. No problem. You will immediately start experiencing the qualities, if you will, of that particular new inks that you chose to use, regardless. Or you can refill the other 7 colors gradually, and you may experience a change in color. Depends on how good the third-party ink source is. But the yellow has to be kept. Either start with a flushed cart or don't. And this is what I was emphasizing. Took me a while to get to this. Bear with me. You know me. Instead of flushing out that yellow cartridge, use it till it's empty, remove it. Buy yourself another one. And buy yourself another one the next time. And buy yourself another one the next time. Yeah, spend that $15 every time. You will never have to experience this problem. Okay? Not only that, but because yellow, might as well throw black in there as well. The black doesn't react, but there's a reason why you should always use OEM black and OEM yellow when you're using a third-party ink source for the Pro 100. Okay? Longevity. So the keys to longevity for that ink set are not in your cyan, your magentas, and your grays, but in your black and yellow inks. So those OEM black and yellow inks are really, really good. So you're not going to ever achieve the original level of longevity. No, don't even think of that. But you're going to increase it to the point where it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile, that extra $30. Okay, it's up to you. If you just do the yellow, you'll still increase longevity, and you will remove all, worries about the yellow jello. Okay, and you don't have to mess with it. You don't have to mess with replacement cartridges. You don't have to switch the chips around, because you get a CLI 8 instead of a CLI 42. You got to switch the original chip from your original card. What do I do with that card now? I know it's valuable. No, don't worry about that. Just buy OEM yellow all the time. Done. That way, for someone who just cannot or doesn't think they have the dexterity to modify or flush a cartridge, just buy a set of empties or buy a set of pre-modified. Do it yourself. If you want that extra longevity, don't use third-party yellow. Use OEM yellow. It's simple. There's many options. So this guy just wanted to know about that, and whether that still applies to the PC Signature Edition yellow ink. Yeah, the yellow ink really didn't increase longevity that much. We don't know that yet. We have to wait. We'll see. Somebody, I know I'm rambling here, but somebody had another comment to me, because I get hundreds of these comments a day. So I'm just picking them out of the air as I remember them. Guy says, I have about 12 of my photographs in my friend's auto repair shop on the walls. And they've been there for a year and they have not faded. And I just put a new one I printed with PC Signature Edition inks and 2 months ago, and it's already beginning to show fading. It looks like it's solarized. You guys that are not old enough to remember the 60s and what solarization is will know what I'm talking about. It's when your black becomes brown and sort of like mid. It looks like an image became half negative, half positive. That's what it looks like. And it's because of the black ink fades quick and the yellow ink fades quick. Okay, those are the two weak points of a dye-based ink set for something like the P4, like the P100, the Pro 100. So to eliminate that, just use OEM colors for those two. You don't have to buy all 8 of them OEM, just those 2. So I went, okay, that's kind of weird, because I've had now 3 months up in my wall upstairs facing the east every day on the wall, unprotected, unsprayed, on the worst paper you could possibly print on, which is, ProLuster. As far as longevity goes, ProLuster is a great paper, don't get me wrong, but it's not the one you would choose if you want longevity. Okay, it's fabulous. And with OEM, PC OEM Pro 100 inks, it'll last decades. It's when you switch over to third party, it can be trusted. It's going to fade. So I have a pair of prints upstairs, one with OEM ink, one with PC SE inks. Neither have faded yet. I just did a video a while ago showing so far what the results are. And I went ahead and printed one, not even 5 minutes before I did the video. That printed one matches the one that's been up there for 3 months now, getting hit by the sun every day. Okay? So it's conditions, the conditions around you, not just the light. If you have lots of fluorescent lights like shops happen to have, quick fading. Okay? Those will fade your prints quicker. If you have ozone, if you have arc welders, yeah. So that's why that print faded and the other 12 did not. But I asked, what were the other 12 prints printed with? The guy disappeared. He didn't want to answer me back. So that's it. Spray your prints. If you know you're going to be using, say, ProLuster, which was available super cheap when they were giving away those, buy 1 get 4 or buy 2 get 9, back in the day. I believe they were getting rid of some stock that they needed to dispose of. That's why they were being given away so cheaply. You won't find those deals anymore. Okay, that kind of tells you something. So spray them. Seal that surface. It's a microporous surface. It's there to allow you to get a nice dry print pretty much immediately out of the printer. The paper base is resin coated. The ink cannot go further than the inkjet coating. It cannot enter the paper fibers itself, or the reflective coating they put on top of the paper. It cannot go that deep, so it's going to always be exposed to gases in the air that we breathe. And in this case, ozone will, oxidize those inks faster than you can sneeze. Okay? Spray them. On a RC coated paper, such as Pro Luster, just spray the top surface. On a regular fiber-based paper that is not resin coated, spray both sides. Ardenberg, say what you will about them. They did a recent test, and Palo Duro soft gloss rag required about 130 megalux of light exposure. A megalux is a million lux. A lux is a measurement of light. 8 hours in your living room with regular living room lights might be 500 lux a day. So you can figure out, what 130 something million lux of light is. Palo Duro was about 130 million lux, and Pro Luster was about 13 before it started to fade. So you see a great difference on how papers behave. And this was with the Pro 1000 and OEM ink. You would have thought, right? But what does that really mean? It means that the Pro Luster may have lasted 2 decades, and the Palo Duro may have lasted 13 times that, or 10 times that much. It's just the paper. After a while, you're already too old to really care about that print. If it's 2 decades, that's good enough for me, But it's all relative. Ink and paper combination is what performs the magic. And you can help things along by spraying them. And that doesn't happen. That's not just applicable for just photos. Watercolor paintings, when you actually do a watercolor painting, they tell you to spray it, protect that very easy to fade paint. Okay, watercolor painting or paints are not really transparent; they're opaque, and you water them down with water, and so you have a very, very weak solution of colored pigment water that you apply to paper. It can fade rather easily, okay, with certain exposures to ozone or light. So they expect you to use a protectant spray, and that will seal it, and that will keep, at least it will keep a lot of UV from hitting it, because it does use a UV protection type scheme, and that will also prevent you from what happened here? Are we still on? I had a flicker of light here. Let me make sure that we are on here. Yes. No, I think it's stalled. Are we okay now? Yeah, I think we had a little problem here. Okay, so I think we're back. Yeah, I froze there for a minute. I don't know what's happening. The lights did flicker in the house, so the skies are looking kind of gray out there, so we'll just continue on here. You guys let me know if something happens. I really cannot detect any problems unless I'm looking at our little delay. I got about a 10-second delay here from the live feed, but I'm looking basically at my monitor here and see exactly what I'm doing. That's pretty much, if I do this, I actually see it being done with not much lag. So let's see what else was being talked about here. We may have to call it an early night if the weather gets worse. Always something. I was watching Ken Heron the other night, and he had a hell of a time with Wirecast. Wirecast is the like $1,100-$1,200 broadcasting software. I use a free one. So open source type software, OBS. And of course it's not as reliable, but he was having tons of problems with Wirecast, and he was really ticked off with Wirecast. He actually did a little pre-show rant directed to the company. Live is always that way. Alrighty. Yes, going back to that HP printer, the cartridges are indeed separate, and you may have to go the refilling route. That's all I can tell you. Again, I'm totally unfamiliar with that printer. If you want to go over to a Pro 100 and you're in the USA, you can still get them relatively cheap after rebate. You know, $100, $100 and plus dollars maybe. And they include a box of paper as well. And many of the offers include a box of paper. So you will pay something like $350 for the printer and then get a $250 rebate card. Plus a box of paper, 13 by 19 usually. Probably like a $50 box of paper for free included. Net maximum would be like $100. Sometimes people pay $50 net. I saw a deal one time where people were getting it for nothing after the net price, and you get your card and everything. You can use that card. It's basically a Visa card with $250 loaded onto it. Okay, let's see. So everybody was still able to hear me. That's good. And even in Sweden, all the way to Sweden. Andrew Mantovani II. Hi, Jose. Any options for refilling that's PGI 72 with OEM inks from PGI 29 cartridges? And maybe from 1000 Lucia Pro inkjet. Here's the deal with the... so you're talking about the Pro 10. So... PGI 29 cartridges, they have 39 millimeters of ink per cartridge. If you're planning on buying PGI 29s for the sole purpose of refilling your Pro 10, it's not really that economical, okay? Because I haven't checked, but I remember seeing those cartridges for like $40 each. And you need 15 to 16 milliliters of ink. So you only really get like less than 3 refills. You see what I mean? So it's not really that great of a way. Now, the way to really do this correctly, but you can only do it partially. But I'll give you, this is going to seem a little mishmash. Mishmash, is that the term? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. So what I do is, let me move this to the back. What I do is, initially I had a source of PGI 29 cartridges that were supposedly empty, but most of them contain like minimum of about 5 ml to like as many as 20 ml of ink in them. So I was able to harvest quite a bit of ink, and I was harvesting the ink, getting them empty, modifying them so that people could buy them and refill them with their own source of ink. So I ended up with bottles of ink. And then I was using that to fill my PGI 72 cartridges. Here's the catch. Pro 1, you can do that directly, yes. Every color except for the dark gray. So your gray and light gray. Light gray is correct. Light gray equals PGI 29 light gray. Okay? PGI 72 light gray, PGI 29 light gray, same. PGI 72 gray is the same as PGI 29 dark gray. Okay? Because the Pro 1 has 3 grays: dark, gray, and light. So dark is equal to gray for the Pro 10. You follow me? So Pro 1 dark gray is the same as Pro 10 gray. There you go. So now you can use PGI 29 cartridges, sure. But again, it's not really economical. A way to go. It really isn't. Using OEM ink on the Pro 10, unless you're really looking for super longevity reasons, or unless you're selling prints made by the Pro 10, the signature edition ink set from Precision Colors is as good as OEM. Okay, that includes OEM red. By the way, that kit includes OEM red. But if you still insist on using OEM on the Pro 10, what I have had to do, and it cost me a ton of money initially, was I had to buy 700 ml cartridges for the Pro 1000, for the Pro 2000. Sorry, not the Pro 1000, Pro 2000. Pro 2000, Pro 1000, there goes the air conditioner. It's now off. I hope you can hear me without any background noise. Pro 1000 and the Pro 2000 share the same ink set, but not the same cartridges. So you can buy up to 700 ml cartridges for the Pro 2000. I suck out some of that ink and I use it on my Pro 1s, on my Pro 10, and my Pro 1000s. All 3 of those. Here's the catch. The Pro 1000, 2000, 4000 uses a different shade of gray. So forget those grays. You cannot use those. But every other color you can. You can use the yellow, the light magenta, the photo magenta, the photo cyan, the cyan. You can use the red. You can use the photo black and matte black. The grays, not really. So what I suggest you do is, regardless how you go about this, unless you can find lots of Pro 1 cartridges that, have ink in them, or willing to pay the money for those, get Precision Color signature edition, and just add OEM. In other words, just use their grays. Use the gray and the light gray for the Pro 10. They're just as good as the OEM. Just as good. Okay. If you must use OEM for the rest of them, then again, you could buy loads of OEM ink from PC. You need to go to the Pro 1000 section, the Pro 1000 section, and order bottles of OEM ink from that section. Let me show you real quick. Now that it's so quiet in here, I can hear myself talk finally. Okay, let's go to Precision Colors. So we're going to punch in the Canon tab and Pro 1000. Follow me so far? So here we are. Refill. So you go here in the whole list of items here. Let's see, OEM. So here's 82 ml of OEM for $35. Okay, you will get, let's see how many loads. So 82 divided by 15, that's enough. No, Jose. Do this right. 82, not minus, divide by 15. You get 5.5 refills for $35 per color. So that's a good way to go. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 colors at least available for you. Now the other colors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the other colors can be purchased through other sources. You can buy PGI 29s if you want, but this will be a cheaper price per ml for you. He doesn't have red available. Oh, here we go, right here. Red, yellow. So you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What do you need? What is left? The gray. So you can substitute Pro 10 gray for that. He also has Pro 10 gray, but he doesn't sell OEM for the Pro 10. So for OEM, you need to go to the Pro 1000 section, is what I'm getting at. So the Pro 10 would be in the 10 color category. Bulk inks. So you just buy the gray from here, okay? And it will be something like 4 ounces would be 1. What's the price for that? Why is it under? Oh, here we go. It's dummy. Right here's the prices. So 2 ounce would be, 4 ounce would be $15. Okay. So that's, like I said, it's going to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You're not going to be able to do it, straight across. It's not going to work out. But anyway, that's one quick way to solve that. If you wish, again, you can just use the Signature Edition ink set plus OEM red. And I would substitute Chroma Optimizer as well, OEM. Okay, I would do that. Simply because it's just superior. Nothing that they can find in the third-party world can come close to that. So, alrighty. I think I did okay. I think I didn't pass out. So that's good. Are there any more questions that we need to address? Please go ahead and do so. If not, I'm going to go ahead and show you my new kit, the little bag that I got for the Anafi, and we'll call it probably, it's 7:30 right now, so we've been on for 2.5 hours, which is longer than I thought we were going to last. So then I'm going to show you a quick view of the latest video that I was able to shoot with this. And my good friend Jeff, who was here, not Jeff, who was he? Let me find them again here. Mike B. Mike B has a YouTube channel for drones. I'm going to go ahead and move my monitor view to the desktop so I can see myself and what I'm doing a little bit clearer. Here we go. All right. So here's this beautiful little bag, and it's a molded bag. It holds everything that I need. 2 batteries, the drone case with the drone in it. Let me shift this over here so I can show you what I'm talking about. Let's move everything out of the way here. I don't want to move my body too quickly because that's usually what triggers the vertigo. And I hope I get over this quick because it's driving me nuts. Controller's right here. The controller turns on automatically when you open it up. Boom, it's on. Immediately on. And it's got a nice foam holder, phone holder. Works very nice. So this has room for the 2 batteries. Little box of propellers. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but 2 batteries right there. C cable. My phone uses a C type connector, so I got the little cable to connect the controller to the phone directly. That way the controller controls the drone via its frequency of Wi-Fi. You can use either 5G or 2.4, is it? Depending on the area you're flying in, depending on the Wi-Fi interference that you have to deal with, you find whatever frequency works best. And that usually for me is 2.8, is it? I forget what it is, but 5G doesn't have as much range. You cannot fly so much, but I usually don't fly more than a couple hundred yards anyway. If I'm in an open area, I would never go beyond line of sight anyhow. So that's not a big worry for me. Another cable here, and we'll take out the drone. Show you guys who have not ever seen an Anafi. It's a cute little thing. Super, super stable. Oh my God, it reminds me of the stability of a DJI when it's up in the air. When you take this thing off, and it just zzz, and it just stays there. I just say, wow. So that's what it's like, except you're only paying like $5 something for this. 4K, fully stabilized. Let me make this sure I got this in the right. Oh, dumb me. I got a little protective plug there. And it snaps right in. Chargeable right here. You press the button to start it up. Right there. And you watch the gimbal. Let me take the legs out. So you got your stabilization processed. Now here's the thing that I found unique about this, and I've seen this so often on other drones, including DJI. When you put your propellers all the way up, if you have a non-folding type propeller, take your drone, if you do have a drone, take it out and orient that propeller so that let me turn it back off. You don't need to waste battery on this. Orient it so that your propeller point is pointing to the front directly. And then look at your camera and the lens right there. And then the furthest point your propeller sticks out. How far is that straight line from the front of your lens? In this case, I measured it. It's about 1.5 inches. And so that tells me that regardless of my inclination, okay, how hard I'm flying, I will never, ever, ever get my propellers in view, okay, of what my camera is seeing. So this is one thing that'll never happen with this design. And I like that. I did a video. I'm going to show you this before we go home tonight. And you'll see, I took it out in my backyard. We had a nice clear sky. And I brought it up, and then I brought the gimbal all the way up. And I indicate that we are now looking up at 90 degrees, then all the way down. So you have a complete 180-degree travel. And not once during that travel will you see any incidents of the legs or in some cases when drones have front LEDs, none of that is going to show. And so, again, it has its applications, and I don't see it being used daily, but I had an idea where I would find a gorgeous sunset someplace, and I would take off with the gimbal straight up, and I would orient it, aim it, aim the nose at where the sun is setting, and then slowly bring the gimbal down. And it's butter smooth. You can set the rates at different rates, just like you can on DJI. Bring it down slowly, and then stop at the point, the horizon point. That would be a unique type shot that I don't think you can do with many other aircraft. So that's one of the things that I love about it. It's got also 4 antennas on all 4 legs, okay, rather than antennas either in the rear legs or the front legs. So it doesn't matter what the orientation of the bird is to your controller. Okay, you will never lose or decrease the Wi-Fi signal whatsoever. That's a great advantage for me. That I like that idea that the signal will always be 4 bars, three to 4 bars. It depends. Again, I don't go out to the point where, it's going to drop. And so, like I said, what I did here the other day was just bring it up, get my bearings, and then I brought the gimbal straight up and then straight down. And then I flew around a little bit, did a orbit around the neighborhood just to show you. And recently I also did a Bebop 1 of the early, the not so great performing Bebop line drone model, the 1. And I brought the gimbal up and I did a nice shot of that evening's sundown. It worked quite nicely. Now, 21 megapixel photos from this, and you can get it to produce the RAW file and then a JPEG along with it. You can tell it to do automatic distortion reduction or elimination, so you can do that as well. Also has HDR video, by the way. So I've seen the results. I'm not a big fan of it. It just looks like an overdone HDR photograph, okay, where you absolutely bring the shadows up. I can fake that in Lightroom with just about any RAW file, but it just has that. I mean, if it's your cup of tea, then that's available as one of the choices while you film. And I'm very happy with it. Again, it was I got it for like $5.25 for the complete kit. Okay, the batteries are $100, so that's not too bad. I got a 3 battery charger unit, so I'm going to get another battery eventually, because I'll have one loaded and then 2 stored here in the case. And it's a cute little case. The case, I got it for $20, and it's just really, it's like, okay, no, you're kidding, right? It cannot be, because it's just too nice of a case. So here we go. We're going to put it away, and then I'll go ahead and show you the video. And I wish I could show you Eli's video. I suggest you guys go, as soon as you leave me here tonight, go over to YouTube, just type in Eli, and just look at his latest video. And just kick back and enjoy. Really enjoy, because it is just luscious. Let's just use that word. Absolutely luscious. Let me go ahead and get the see what else we got here. We got a couple of more things, and I thought I saw something. Oh, it is 22 minutes past midnight in Sweden right now. You're still hanging out with us. Trisha Williamson says, I love my R2000. Yeah, the R2000 is fabulous. Eli, are you asking me about my computer RAM? Is 32 gig, and it's more than enough for imaging. More than enough. I don't care what I throw at it, it can handle it. So as far as video rendering, that's different, because that takes your CPU into account, and you have to have an NVIDIA CPU in order for the CUDA core to be brought into play. If you're using something like Adobe Premiere, Adobe uses the CUDA, C-U-D-A core technology, and it will actually tap into the CPU for your rendering effects and also the rendering of the video. But a lot of if you use a lot of effects and things like that on your videos, some of them are so-called CPU effects, it will have to rely on the CPU to render them live or real time. Otherwise, they have to be pre-rendered. That takes away from the fun of things. So you want to see what immediately happens, then you need to have a CUDA core compatible card, and that's basically at this point only NVIDIA has that. But it works with Lightroom and Photoshop beautifully. So okay. Let me continue down here. That was an earlier question that I missed. Sorry about that. Jim 9647 just dropped a $5 super chat. I appreciate that, Jim. I don't think I've had you here before. Have you been here before, my friend? If not, I hope you continue to come back. I hope you enjoyed the time. Again, I'm not at my best today, so don't judge me by this performance here. Okay, let's see. Eli has, I've never gotten props in my shots with the Mavic. The problem kills the Phantom 4 Pro and all the Phantom S models. Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes, what was it that I said? When you're doing a shot toward like a group of people, you want to do instead of like a reverse droney, and that drone will tilt and the gimbal goes up to try to stay, stationary with the horizon. You'll get the props in the way. It all depends on that distance, the difference distance between the tip of your props aimed at 12 o'clock and the front of your lens on your camera. Okay, if it exceeds a certain amount of time, also notice that they are pretty far out left and right. So they designed that specifically to make sure that you would never, ever, ever have a problem, regardless of what direction you go in. So what they recommend you do is, if you want to do the shot where you're going from far to close, shoot it the other way. Shoot it as a droney, where the drone will tilt backwards as it goes backwards, and the gimbal will then level itself. The props will be out of the way, and then reverse the video. That's one suggestion that they use for drones that have that problem. And some people think it's cool to see the drone propellers anyway, so it all depends. It all depends on what your point of view is. I wouldn't want that on a nice cinematic shot like the stuff that you shot in Switzerland. That would kill it. You would not have gotten video of the week for the second time. See that? I told you. You edited that perfectly, by the way. Okay. One thing that I hate, absolutely hate, is like awkward cuts where the video is, you're standing still, you turn to the left, and then you say, oh, I should have turned to the right, and you did not cut that out during your editing. I mean, why would you not do that? Because your video is so precious? No, it's not. You can throw away half of your video practically every single time you edit. Yeah. I make mistakes like that all the time as well, and I'm trying to get better and better and better as I go along. So let me go quickly through everything here. And the upward tilting gimbal of the Anafi is a very good feature, which would definitely come in handy in some situations. I would like to see something like that. It would be difficult on drones that have that heavy cinematic camera directly underneath. Even the Inspire or the Typhoon H series, which has the same kind of design with the legs that go up and the camera just dangles there. There's no way you can aim up. Yeah, you can go 360 with your drone standing still. You have dual operator type thing too, where you have literally two remotes locked into the same drone. One guy is running the camera, you're running the drone. But I haven't seen the camera that can go all the way up. And to me, I got all sorts of ideas, all kinds of reveal shots that you could do. Just think about it, Eli. You're good. You like to go to these places and do this sort of thing. Just think about the type of videography you could do that is unlike anybody else's with a conventional type drone with a horizontal, just slightly above horizontal and straight down. Big deal. Big deal. Oh yeah, you can go 3 degrees above the horizon. So what? How about straight up? Imagine had I been up and a jet plane had flown on top. Of course, at a high altitude, but you still would be able to see it. There's no way you can take your drone physically. Well, you could, but that wouldn't be good. Not while flying anyway. It's not going to happen. Oh, you doubt your video will come up if you just type Eli? Let's check that out. I'm going to check that. I'm going to take your challenge. Your video will not show up, but it'll be your channel that'll show up. Well, you don't think you're famous enough yet? Let's see. Let me get my OBS set up properly again here. Okay, let's go find YouTube. I'm not going to play it, Eli, but I'm going to show people how to get there. So go ahead and type Eli. Let's see. Why isn't Eli showing? Did you change your name, your channel name? Oh, that's spelled wrong, dummy. There we go. No? Wait a minute. You might be right. Let me go to my subscriptions. What's going on? Here you go. Eli, yeah. So yeah, Eli. Let's type in Eli. It should show up. Why aren't you showing up? That's how I found you before. Anyway, here's Eli right here. And this is his video. So Eli, what is your actual channel name? Why can't you show up if I just type in Eli? Now that's weird. That's not you. That is odd. Anyway, let me type the link. I hope I can get that link without any kind of hassles here. I don't want to play the video because I'll get flagged. Copy the link address. We're going to pop this into the chat, folks. I can do that. You guys grab that link and go view that video the minute we get off the air. Okay? That's my request for you guys to do for Eli tonight. And subscribe to his channel. He only has a handful of videos anyway, but this will encourage him to continue to grow. And again, if you're not a member of my Facebook channel, my Facebook page, that is, make sure you join that as well. Here we are. And I want to show you what this is about. You see that? This is a bunch of people. This Eli's pictures right here. Take a look. All sorts of problems and questions are being asked. This guy found this photograph. Either that or a negative, I think it was, and he fixed it all up. It's from the 1950s, shot with a Leica from the 50s on film, and printed it on the Pro 100. See, I mean, there's no end to what you could do. Really, really awesome. This is the most fun I've ever had in my life. Oh, here's one question that we should have addressed, but maybe we'll see what's happening here. This lady is using compatible cartridges for the Pro 10, and they're horrible, horrible. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, 11 comments here, but the message to take home is, please don't do that. Don't do that. I don't care how enticing it seems. Do not use compatible cartridges on your Canon printers unless they're just desktop models. Nothing in the photo printing realm. If it says Pro in the front of the name, the number, don't use compatible carts, please. You will be nothing but sorry. All right, let's go ahead and look for my little video that I just recently did. Right here. So that's the gimbal going up. I'm just hovering. I'm not gaining altitude. That's part of the sky. And now we're almost up. And again, folks, remember that you're not going to see this in 4K on this transmission. Impossible. Usually by now you would see, with the gimbal straight up, imagine you would see prop blades. If the prop blades came into the angle of view of the camera lens, it would be, almost impossible to avoid that. In fact, even on cameras that only go to just slightly above the horizon, you often see blades when you're racing forward at a faster rate of speed because of the way that the drone will tilt. So there's the shadow right there by the fence. I don't know if you got to see that. So I'm going to rotate a little bit. I'm going to go back up. This is straight back down, straight down. The gimbal adjustment. So I did a yaw and gimbal adjustment at the same time. So I'm looking right east from my house. Right now I'm not even maybe, I don't know, 30, 35 feet up. That's all I am doing right now. Not very high. I have it set. It's got a gimbal adjustment from 1 to 100. This is rate 15, whatever that means. So, you adjust the rate, your maximum rate, and then you can actually gradually set your gimbal from nothing to whatever rate you want it to gradually. You max out at that rate. And it's really very counterintuitive. It's, down means down and up means up. I don't like the ones that have a slide that you have to remember if right is down or up, if left is up or down. It's for me difficult to remember. So here I just say that the adjustments are butter smooth. So far, I have not experienced with any other camera setting but just auto. And again, I have to test out that HDR video, see what that does. I gotta find some challenging lighting conditions where HDR would come into play. Otherwise, it's just a gimmick as far as I look at it. A lot of Anafi owners, they don't shoot HDR a lot. I don't know what they were thinking when they tried to introduce that gimmick. So I'm using K-Log as my camera profile. Gives me an extremely flat looking, high dynamic range type result, and then you can apply a LUT, you can apply color correction. Usually what I'll do is I'll take some video of a white card, and then I'll use my eyedropper tool to neutralize that within the editing application. So even if I use, and somebody told me not to use any kind of filter, because if you want to adjust shutter speed for certain situations, you have to use a neutral density filter on your camera. Some people were highly against that, which is fine. They said that it changes your color balance, and you cannot do a proper color balance adjustment? Well, yes, you can, actually. Yes, you can. The way you can do that is by, just like you do with a regular still camera. You're at a photo shoot, you have your lighting set up, or you're in a location somewhere and your light is pretty constant. You either have a gray card or a white card. A gray card meaning 18% gray, and a white card. So those are your standards. These cards are neutral. So you place that in front of the subject. You're shooting a young lady or whatever, or a gentleman, whatever the case might be, a child. He holds the card, he or she holds the card. You take a picture of that, and then you use your eyedropper tool in Photoshop to find where the gray card is. Click, it will neutralize that. If it was slightly warm, it will bring it down to neutral. If it was slightly cool, it will bring it up to neutral, and so forth. The 18% card will get you to a perfectly central exposure range. Okay? And you can adjust that. On video, it's the same way. You shoot a preliminary clip of video, or just shoot video of that card. Say you're about to take off, hold the drone up yourself, start your recording. By the way, this starts recording automatically as soon as it lifts off. But start your recording manually and take a shot of that white card or gray card. And then when you're then in post, even if you have a so-called neutral density filter or polarizing filter installed, and these are quite small, do that. Get your little bit, few seconds of that standard, and then in your editing software, you should have access to an eyedropper tool. Measure that white card. It will neutralize everything. Your white point, even if the filter shifted your white balance a little bit, it will be brought back down to neutral. If you look at a lot of motion pictures, nothing is white balanced. Okay, everything has a LUT. Okay, everything has a certain color grading, if you will. I watched some mystery British movies on RTV just today, and everything, absolutely everything was color graded, and nothing was neutral. Nothing was what a neutral piece of video would look like. Everything is altered slightly. So if you want neutral, this is the way to go. Even if you're using a filter that may shift your color balance slightly, you can re-neutralize it by using this technique. Shoot a few seconds of that white card. If you want neutral and exposure also fixed, shoot a few seconds of the 18% gray card. And then in your editing software, get your eyedropper tool and hit it. And it will do with the 18%, it will fix your exposure and your color balance at the same time. Your exposure will be in the middle. Now you have to bring in your highlights. You have to bring up your shadows if that's what you want to do. And then once you get everything to just under white, and just above black, then you can move your midtones whichever way you want. And that's what I've been doing here. So you did not see that part though, but that's what I do. And again, regardless of what, if you use, I think you got some freewheel filters, Eli, right? Just the other day, Thursday, you got some freewheel filters. You can put them on, and if they do shift your color balance, again, start your videos always with a shot of a baseline, a neutral white card. You can buy those; they're readily available, and it's not just a sheet of white paper. It's special. Okay, believe me, it makes a difference. So. No, I have not gotten ND filters yet. I'm about to order them from Amazon. A set of about 6, including one is a polarizing filter. And you might want to use that whenever, even if there are no areas of high reflectance. See, the way polarizing filters work. Well, anyway, let's get to that after this. So it'll have 1 UV, and then 4 neutral density up to ND 60 something. I forget how much ND equals one stop. But again, so if you want to bring, if your shutter speed is like 4 times higher than what you want to be at, and the cinematic, oh boy, everybody will argue with me. The cinematic shutter speed is 1/48th of a second, because film cameras shot at 1/24th of a second. So you need twice that. You need, or half that speed. So, and you'll get that motion blur between frames as you're panning. That's the look. Some people want that jittery look, and that's not me. I don't like that. So, but you know, if you want to like do with still cameras, you want to do something, and the ocean and sunset, or you want to use f32, and you want to shoot at 2 seconds, you're going to have to use a neutral density filter, period. There's no way that you can shoot for, 8 to 10 seconds worth of exposure, even at f32, if your lens even goes that high, without using a neutral density filter. It's just too much light out there, so you have to cut down the amount of light so that you can use a very long shutter speed. On a camera on a tripod, the ocean is moving and everything looks like silk when you get done. That's the whole idea. So now, polarizing filters. So polarizing filters work by cutting off, in other words, light from the sun is got rays at all sorts of directions, all kinds of angles. So the polarizing filter, the front one, it used to be where if you take 2 polarizing filters and you do this, you will block out all light, because the polarizing filter only allows one axis of that wavelength to pass through. And then if you have another one and you cross it, it blocks out the light. So you're just using one lens. So what happens when light of multiple planes bounces off of something that's got like a shiny surface, that light comes back to you. It's already sort of polarized. Okay, so you're not getting, all of a sudden, you're not getting all 360, angles. You're getting maybe a few. And so what you do is you take and you rotate your polarizing filter until you begin to remove those reflections. The reflections do nothing but cut back on the saturation, the natural colors that you have in your scene. So people think it's only for darkening the sky and enhancing the clouds. Yeah, sure. It'll do that only when the sun is like at 90 degrees to you. So if the sun is here and whatever you want to shoot is here, that's 90 degrees. So depending on your sun angle, it will depend on how much you can actually block. But for landscapes, where you have, like in the fall, all sorts of trees lit up, beautiful, to your eyes they look great. Then you see it in film and it's, wait a minute, what happened? Those were bright reds, oranges, and greens, and all sorts of brown colors and stuff. They got sort of diluted by the reflection of the light. So that's a case where polarizing filter would actually help a lot. So you have to visually, it'd be a pain on a drone though, because you would have to look at it on your monitor and then literally rotate it, and while you're screen looking at it, okay, that's perfect, and you're not where you're going to be shooting. You see what I'm saying? So you have to find that correct setting, because once you're up in the air, you cannot rotate to find that sweet spot. So you got to sort of experiment. You take it up, and that shot you will get will have no reflections coming from those leaves. The true colors will emerge. You'll probably have to do nothing in post to bring out those colors. So that's the goodie about a polarizing lens. And it also cuts your light like maybe a couple of times. So you might have to increase your exposure 2x. So depends on the filter. But I love them. I used to use them a lot in my regular still shots. Even for black and white photography, they do help a lot. Because often what happens is that you may see a lot of tones, but they're basically become just 1 or 2 shades of gray because of all of the weird reflections that you don't really detect subconsciously from trees and leaves and surfaces. When you polarize those out, then you see the real deal. It's really amazing, and it works really well for black and white as well as specifically really well for color. So something that I would recommend, and I'm going to definitely attempt to do with this little toy we have here. So I've always used a PL filter. I use a 3-Polar Pro in the PL. Good. Art Winning Photography, who should know, is here. I'm using Polar Pro filters on my Phantom 4 Pro. The best filters to use on a drone, not cheap, but yeah. Don't buy cheap filters. They're polycarbonate, not real glass. Okay. You see a lot of this junk coming from China for all your drones, and they're garbage. Just that people they cannot pass the deal up, so they get them. All right. So yeah, about $80 for 3 filter set. These are so tiny that you can get the Freewell filters for about $60 for like a series of 5 or 6 filters. And so there's not a lot of glass there, or they're not rectangular like some of the Mavic filters are. So they don't have to. These are a lot easier to manufacture. So not a huge expense if you ask me, and something that will definitely increase the quality of your results. Let me see what else I got here. If there's anything else that we can share. No, that's about it. So anyway, alrighty. Sounds good. I think I survived the evening. And I really appreciate you guys jumping in here, hanging out with me tonight. Again, I almost canceled because I didn't know what I was going to be feeling like. So let me go upstairs and see what happens when I walk up the stairs. So, as always, I will play a little bit of music. See you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.